Alright, bad testing.
Try not to laugh, Chow. I was reading Farlow's doctrine right now.
All right, here we go. So, welcome everybody to the August Site Director debates. As if for all you don't know, I'm Monty. I play on the server. I'm gonna be hosting today's debates. The debate is gonna be between the two who are running for Site Director for the month of August. So, without further ado, we have the HOS nomination of Mr. Jacob Sievers with his Site Deputy Director Johnny Roast Beef, and for the Site Administration nomination, we have Farlow and Reptile. To briefly explain, the way we're going to go ahead and do this debate is there's going to be 4 sections. There's going to be an initial opening question section where you'll both be prompted with the same question, and then you'll both be an opportunity to answer, followed by a small section of debate. We will then go into division-specific questions, which are going to delve deep into each of your own individual doctrines, where you'll be specifically asked a question from your doctrine. The opposition will have a chance to rebuttal, and then a debate. We will then go to questions from the audience. I will take a certain number of questions from the audience, which you will both be, again, given the opportunity to answer. And lastly, you'll both each be provided the opportunity to ask 3 questions to the opposing person in alternating fashion, allowing for then a rebuttal, and obviously some sort of debate based upon that question. So, as I said, we're going to start with the initial opening question. So these are more generalized questions. You're each going to be given the opportunity to answer them within a certain time frame, probably around 2 minutes or so, or less, and then you will each be given the opportunity to debate one another upon your answers to said question. So, we will start with, we're going to have Farlow answer first, followed by Sievers for the first question. So, our first question for Mr. Farlow is, what is the biggest problem on site currently?
This is a very good question, and I think it's a pretty simple answer. It's like dog shit the RP is. No one acts serious. I understand that people want to have fun, but there's essentially little to none. There's little to zero RP on site, and I believe that is the biggest issue that we have as of now.
Mr. Sears?
So to really break down the way that I've grasped a lot of my knowledge on how the site runs and everything like that in these past few weeks and days of prepping for this debate, to go over what Follow said, but more specifically, there's a lack of respect for the RP. There's a lack of respect for divisions, and there's less RP to be had in specific divisions. Uh, when people say, when people came up to me, they're like, Jacob, we want more stuff. We want more guns. We want better guns. We want better divisions. We want better shit to do, and we want more expansion upon the RP that we can conduct. You look at D Block, which is mindless killing. You look at MTF, which is just sitting in a, or the TCU sitting in a hallway, giving absolutely no contribution to the site. You look at the MTF, who sits in the easy and waits for CI, GOC, or any sort of GOI to even attack. The point I'm trying to make is that the RP is bad because there is nothing to be done on the site, and there's no new experiences that can be had. And there's also a lack of respect for the RP in general, and that goes off one of my 3 top letters of my doctrine. You know, the respect part of it, and you know the fact that some of the URP is not correctly organized. Previous site directors have stopped organization. SOPs are not updated. People are confused, so they adapt to what they believe should be the right things to do, which is not the right, serious way to address the RP. The whole point is that RP needs to be addressed. New experiences need to be given to older players, but also newer players. And we need to give a lot more players new responsibilities in order to increase their attention span within the server, and that'll therefore increase the RP. So, yeah.
So, considering you both answered the same problem revolving around the RP, we're going to jump right to the next question because it involves it. So, what do you think is the reason that roleplay has seemed to come to a complete halt on the server?
Okay. Despite Brandon's retarded point, or Farlow ash raped IA, Farlow ash raped IA, turn it into FE. I think the 2 main issues right now with RP on the server is well, it's being worked upon for my second point, but the first point majorly is D block. It's very hard to roleplay in D block because the D class are very mingy. They get bored and they decide that they have nothing better to do but to go buy guns from the dealer and go shoot the security, which makes security's lives a lot harder. My second point is research. Now, research have been doing pretty good in my personal opinion, but I don't think there's been enough research D-class RP, which also feeds into the problem as to why D-block is so bad. I believe D-class and research are the two most important factors to RP on the server, and I don't believe that they are being handled correctly at the moment.
Mr. Severs?
Alrighty, so it's very simple. I agree with everything Follow said, but if you look at Follow's doctrine, he's not stating anything to actually increase the RP within D block and to not increase any of the RP in research. If you read my doctrine in both of the research and the D block sections of their specific subsection, whether or not security or research, I go into in-depth detail and I have to increase the RP within those divisions. You look at D block and D block schedule. Give D class something to do and force them to do it by changing the rules, changing the map, changing the orientation of security in order to move and allow them not only the D block to have not only responsibility to just run and try to escape, but that they can actually go and do something, whether or not it's nap, mealtime, or they have free time where they can mine and make money. We have to give incentives to D class because if they stop minging, that means security can actually do their job and enforce stuff. So instead of having a newly trained security, you can now go into D block and say, hey, listen, instead of something, then just standing at the D block KOS line and shooting them when they cross, now they can enforce the D block schedule. Research, another big thing with research I've always tried to push. It's extremely hard to do, but I can do it because me and Brandon together, Falco, we do stuff and we get stuff done the first day, which is a big thing that Paulo doesn't. Says he does not really bring up any solid points. Everything that he promised in his doctrine will not be done until maybe 2 weeks in. Everything in my doctrine will be initiated the first minute I'm elected to be site director. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that I have plans for this. And he's completely right. Research and D-Class both need to stop minging. But you also have to realize, too, you also have minginess coming from higher ups in the divisions, which is a big thing that I'm going to address and which I address within my doctrine as well. You have minginess that comes from people, and I don't mean to cut off Follow, but Follow does have a little bit of minginess in him. You take minginess from a higher up and you translate that down to regular enlisted or NCOs, it's going to translate right into their behavior as well. They're going to become mingy because they think it's exceptional. You got to realize that leading by example is one of the best ways to lead, and that's how I lead. I lead by example, and by having people in a situation where their leader is minging and talking out of line and not being serious, well, guess what? They're not gonna have a serious division.
So I'm going to further add to this question, and I want you guys to try and keep your answers brief, but because it's very simple. I want to know, what is the first thing you have to do, the first thing from your doctrine, your plan, to improve the role play? What is the first step you want to take?
Okay. This isn't really a question that I have thought of, because there's a lot of things that I do want to do quite quickly. If I have to be a bit vague about it, probably my research plans, my research and security plans, start off with the two big divisions and then slowly build up from there.
All right, Mr. Severs?
Once again, stated clearly in my doctrine. Here's the thing: we have to have accountability, which once again is a part of my doctrine. One of the three letters, the ARR, right? The point is that we need to have accountability. We need to give back accountability to our HOS, to our site administration. I not only introduce this in the Site 9 Constitution, but it needs to actually be enforced. We need to make examples out of people who've been minging and have been in the higher ranks, higher rank COs, NCOs, even division leaders. We need to can't sit by and say, hey, listen, it's acceptable for them to do it because they're decent leaders for the most part, but then they step out of line and they cause enlisted to begin to minge and fall into a minging personality and getting away more from more RP, right? People will roleplay more if more serious RP is conserved. We're able to maintain that. We were maintain that by making COs, the higher ups, accountable. That includes site director, site deputy director, the site defense general, the FB grand marshal, the security chief. Everybody needs to maintain accountability. Without accountability, well, it's just going to become a corruption fest where it's like, oh, I'm going to keep you in power because you're my boy. Too fucking bad. You're out because because you're not accountable. You did something wrong. You're minging. Your boys are now minging. Your men are minging under you, and you're destroying the RP at the site, and you're making it less fun for a guy who comes on, gets trained as a security officer, and then has to deal with the minginess when he thinks he's coming to a serious RP server. It's generally what happens.
Okay.
You know, and maintaining accountability within the higher ups is one of the biggest things you can do to solve RP to begin with.
All right. So now changing tax a bit, we're going to start moving towards more division stuff. So the first question is obviously, and this one's gonna be real simple. What is the weakest division, and what is the reason that it is?
Okay. What do you mean by that? What do you like activity-wise, how they're doing, and such like that?
Worst performance as a division.
Worst performing
If that
division.
includes you,
Okay.
if that includes activity, if that includes if that includes how they act, what is currently the weakest division?
All divisions right now are pretty stable, but if I did have to pick one, I would probably go with MTF. MTF have been a bit weakened due to the CI under the leadership of Juan. Juan has been leading CI very effectively, and it has had a major effect on the mobile task force. The leadership in the mobile task force is good, but you don't see it on. You don't see them on all that often. I think it gives MTF a bit less motivation to get on and protect the site. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say.
I was given the privilege of actually having some time to really let this seep in and really focus on the weakness of a respective division. Now, my biggest answer that I've gone to that when I've talked to a lot of people, and I've talked to countless amounts of people about some of these questions. MTF is a great answer, and I agree with it, but I don't think it's weak in regards to the fact that they don't have a lot of activity. I understand that, but MTF as a weak division, whatever. It's MTF. It's supposed to be an elite division. We want to think of like career building. You're getting onto deep gaming. The first thing you do is you either become security or you do research. You're not automatically going to the MTF. So I'm going to let MTF out of my answer because I think it was answered pretty well by Farlow. Except my real criticism is that you have to also need to hold the higher ups at MTF accountable. If your men are not active, well, you got to hold the higher ups accountable. You got to say you got to get on them without having proper leadership from the site director and say, hey, listen, MTF commander, if you don't get your boys active, you have a replacement. You have to get on their asses because stuff won't be done. Now, answering the question, I think is the weakest division is research. There is no RP in research anymore. There is no organization. There's no nothing in research. There's no RP. There's so many people in research. You think about it. Nobody understands. Oh, I'm going to do this pointless test on this SCP to do nothing. You need to get research going, and I have so many plans. Read the doctrine, boys. I'm telling you, my plan for research, if it's able to be done, if I get my brother, who's now the deputy community director, if I get Brad, who's my site deputy director, and I have the deputy community director working for me, I'm literally not going to let them rely on other people. I'm not going to let them rely on security or anything like that. I'm going to give research activities to do. I'm going to get rid of. I'm going to slowly get rid of the divisions, and there's a big thing we have to get rid of certain divisions of research. We need to increase players and the seriousness and research to begin with by increasing organization. We need to allow researchers to know what they need to do, how they need to conduct this research, and what makes general sense. That's how research is done to begin with. And that's how you're going to increase the RP to begin with first. And then you need to give them freedom to test on SCPs. You need to get them freedom to affect RP. The more and more you affect RP, and they're able to affect RP, the more researchers are going to have. Researchers, unironically, go do a test. They go put it to a log. Where does it go? Who reads it? Who cares about it? You make a proper log, and you're able to actually affect RP. That's how you actually get RP back to research, and that's how you make research the most important division on site, which it should be.
Based on your answer, and Farlow, you'll go. I'll have Seavers go first this time. What HOS are you? If you have to remove an HOS, what HOS are you removing?
I've talked to all HOS, but if I'm gonna be honest with you, and this is not a targeted question, I liked all the HOS talked to. The only HOS I didn't talk to because it gives away my game plan was Farlow. I'm gonna be honest with you, and I don't mean to be rude to Farlow in this, but his midginess, from what I've heard from members in the FB, from members all around the site, is that they cannot rely on him when it comes to maintaining seriousness, and they cannot rely on him when it regards to actually executing a plan that he has. The biggest thing I've seen, I've also heard complaints about other divisions, but my biggest thing, Farlow, because the biggest thing in my opinion is to demonstrate why I'm a better candidate, and the reason why is because of is genuinely because of the midginess. He does not when he leads by example, and the big part of his leadership, and you'll realize this. You really analyze how Farlow leads. He leads by example. He leads by example when he does, and he's actually serious. He leads very well. But also, the 25% of the time, you get the unseriousness, which leads to midginess.
What would your answer be then?
What would if I had to demote HOS?
Right now,
This is a pretty simple question. I go by the people, and in the news Discord, there was a recent poll, and the votes were heavily in the majority in favor of Dr. Simon Hatfield. I love Hatfield. He's a good leader. He's a good DOR. and I personally like the guy. However, activity and change is a pretty big factor in this, and I don't believe that Hatfield necessarily delivers on either of these. And one of my main plans for if I become site director, is to kind of sort out Hatfield, see what's going on. If he can't get the activity up, maybe we'll have to replace him.
All right, thank you.
But may I have a rebuttal though? May I have a rebuttal?
Yes,
Give
you
him,
can
yeah, he
have,
needs a
you
Okay.
can
rebuttal. I've been
have
going on
a
for the past 20 minutes.
30-second rebuttal.
Okay, so Jacob, in your foundation enforcement doctrine, you said a department led by Farlow. Let me begin by stating his leadership is amazing. There are no complaints from me regarding his leadership. Then why are you then going and saying, but Farlow's minginess, people can't rely on him? Like, I don't get it. You're saying that like I'm mingy and all, but then in the doctrine, you're kind of like saying that there's
Although
no
if we're gonna
complaints about him.
quote doctrines, we can go back a couple of months and read everything you've put in your doctrine, and about 50% of the things you say you never do and fail on. For example, the site deputy director role that you planned to have in October, you chose Peak, who just went MIA and then did nothing to fix that. So if we're gonna go nitpick everything in the doctrine, let's just talk about how the fact that you can get nothing done, and it's just another month of the status quo. You sit around and do nothing, and then you just sit there, and then someone takes your spot and unfucks everything that you fuck up. So when the new FE commissioner has to do that, I pray that he has a lot of tolerance for what he has to fix. But
And
just because Jacob misspoke and complimented you after hearing the truth, he should correct himself instead of promoting a false narrative.
sorry,
Uh,
excuse me.
We're
I
gonna go
mean,
ahead move on now. So next question, we're gonna move on to Alpha 1 and Omega 1. Do you, as site director, intend to change the recruitment, remove members, or change any of the procedures for Alpha 1 or Omega 1? We'll start with Mr. Stevers this time.
Paul, if you'd like to talk, I think you deserve a chance to at least rebuttal what Brandon said. And if you want to continue with the question, that's up to you. But if not, I will speak.
well, to rebuttal, Brandon, you have not played on the fucking server in ages. You play the server for 3 days, go fucking MIA, and then come back for 3 days, and then never play again. You barely play the server. You barely interact with your own community apart from fucking monthly game nights. So how about you shut the fuck up? Shut the fuck up! Okay, you barely interact with your community. You get on the server once every 3 days, and all you do is just dick around. You get on once a month to talk to the HOS about a server update, and then you're sitting here spouting all this fucking bullshit. I don't understand. You're the site deputy director of Jacob, okay? You're not the site director. You're not running for site director, okay? So how about you just shut the fuck up?
I'm the deputy site director. My role is important. As you said, the deputy site director should be a present and helpful role toward the site director, which is why I'm here helping Jacob win this election. Your fucking retard site director is sitting there with his little deafen button, not even paying attention. And as you say, 3 days a month? 3 days a month is all it takes for me to know that you're fucking your division from the ass. You may continue, Farlow, into rebuttal, and then we'll move on to the question, and I won't respond.
All right. So I'm gonna do something here, okay? Seeing the debate I had with Nigby, I said that the SDD is merely a popular position, and I still stand by that. And in fact, you agreed with me. You said, and I quote, "Someone finally said it." So you're being very fucking hypocritical here. You know, it's a bit retarded on your end, but other than that,
I said that. I will not deny that. But that doesn't mean I'm not. That's why I'm here to fix that. I'm here to set an example. As you saw, you know why you have a doctrine? I started that. You know why there's leadership training? I started that. You know why there's a constitution? Jacob started that. The things me and Jacob do roll out for fucking years. The things you do, about 10 days, 10-day executive order, where you're just completely out the window because no one takes you seriously. Oh, I apologize. I said I wouldn't respond, but we should probably get to the question. Before I respond,
Yeah, let's jump back to the question here.
okay. So for Alpha 1, when it comes to Omega 1,
Oh,
I'm not going to touch.
wait, Reptile, I did insult you. Would you like to rebuttal?
Oh god. Anyways, for Omega 1, I don't intend to change Omega 1. It's not my place. That's the Ethics Committee's place to change Omega 1, stated in my doctrine. As for Alpha 1, Omega 1, I want them two to have the same sort of format. So we're going to be implementing an Alpha 1 leadership position. So the Alpha 1 lead position that I did remove, which I do intend on adding back, however. We are most likely not even most likely, we do intend to put Shanes, otherwise known as Solaris, in this position. He is the last retainer of the Alpha 1 lead position, and personally, the most fitting for it. Like Jacob says, it's most important. Shanes leads by example, and we believe that he will make Alpha 1 much better.
Right, Mr. Severs?
I completely actually agree with Farlow. When it comes to Alpha 1, I originally set up as my protective detail 4 years ago. I put a fellow Marine who's killed 27 people in the line of duty as my Alpha 1 lead. And it was supposed to be the Alpha 1 guidelines. I actually still have the Alpha 1 guidelines, in which I had Justin conducting the training and going through the rounds to actually get the specific Alpha 1s and doing a lot of different things. No, it's not Outlaw 1, it's a guy named Justin, otherwise known as Sicario. He was Special Agent Sicario or Senior Agent Sicario. The point is that the way that Alpha 1 should be led is not necessarily, it should be a brotherhood in general. It should not be like a CO position where they have power to do specific things. They have power over Alpha 1. They're a squad leader. And that's how the Alpha 1 should be selected. It should be by the squad leader and the site administration, because Alpha 1's job is to not only protect 05, but also the site administration. And so by having site administration involvement with A1, that'd be great. Now going on to Omega 1. Omega 1 now, the whole point of Alpha 1 and Omega 1 is to execute the administrative duties of each individual office. Now Omega 1 has no purpose. Okay? Omega has zero purpose. Why? Because the ethics committee is not doing anything. Because they do not have clear guidelines. They don't have anything in the Constitution. Whoever wrote the ethics committee guidelines of the Constitution makes zero sense. I don't understand them. I don't know why they were put in to begin with. And that's another part of my doctrine that I think is important. My ethics committee changes. They need to be given specific duties that they can be doing so that Omega has something to do. You got to realize that Omega should be controlled by the EC. The same way that Alpha 1 is controlled by the SA, Omega 1 should be controlled by the EC. But the point is, EC has nothing to execute. They do not ensure any policies. They don't have to execute any sort of policies whatsoever. So why do we need that? The point I'm trying to make is that Omega 1 and Alpha 1 should be both led the same, similar ways, except Omega 1 serves EC and Alpha 1 serves SA, which should be leading to a very cool and interesting dynamic between the Senate administration and the Ethics Committee. But the point is, the Ethics Committee has no power to do anything because the way they were written, the Constitution makes zero sense. And that is one thing that will change the minute I become site director. Will be a revisioned code on
If you don't
Ethics
mind
Committee.
if I jump in for just a
Of
moment.
course.
You're actually going to go on to my next question.
I
So
apologize.
I'm
yeah.
going to allow you to actually continue in a moment, but let me pose the question so that everyone knows where we're going with this. The ethics committee was just purged. As you're seeming to say, your opinion, the conclusion would be, what is the biggest issue and how do you intend to repair the massive issues the division holds? You seem to see the biggest issue as being they don't have a clear set of guidelines. If you'd like to elaborate that on a little further,
Yeah,
and then
of
allow
course.
Farlow to answer next.
Of course. I have no idea who wrote these EC guidelines. I don't know if they even have an SOP. I was trying to look for it. I actually do have the guidelines in front of me. The point is, these guys are poorly written. I think the guidelines I made 3 years ago better apply than the guidelines written whenever the EC was established. The point I'm trying to make is that in the Site 9 Constitution, it was written poorly. The Site 9 the EC guidelines or SOP is written poorly. They do not have specific roles because everybody was scared to give EC specific authorization, specific power. You give EC specific power to do this, and this. You can not only make EC a powerful force that can lead to checks and balances of HOS versus SA, but you could also allow them to get involved with the RP and increase the seriousness and allow them to be a force that works with research. And that's the whole point. If they work with research, hand in hand with research, they're going to be able to get more RP from the research. They're going to be able to do this, and this. The point I'm trying to make is that if EC could be summoned, right, not only for trials, because I think that's a great thing that you guys introduced in the trial. That should be one thing they do. But also, who would evaluate? Who's better to evaluate the ethics of a specific test or a thesis of research? Once again, read my doctrine on research. Please understand what I mean by thesis. Because when I say thesis, I mean multiple tests that go along to support an hypothesis. How research works in real life. But if you introduce a thesis to a group of the ethics committee, and you say, hey, listen, I want to do this, like you do in real life, except you go up against a board committee. You go up to the committee, otherwise on the ethics committee, and you say, hey, listen, this hypothesis I'm trying to prove. Do I have your permission? Do I have your money? Do I have the capability, in your opinion, to execute these specific experiments to prove that specific hypothesis? And if you do that to an EC, you're not only going to make research more enjoyable, but you'll allow a structure of research. You'll lead more organization of research. And you'll also bring research to how it is in real life. And who better to help lead the inclusion of research on how it is in real life than me? I unironically work for many different researchers, Dr. Huaya Zhang, Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. I now work for Dr. McLaughlin of Robert Johnson Medical School. The point is that I understand how to implicate real research and to make it simplify it so it's enjoyable and you can do less of the paperwork but still enjoy research and allow it to have a greater impact on RP. And so when it comes to the EC, a great moment they can have, not only the trials, because I think if anything is written about EC, the trials, some of the guidelines are poorly written, but the trials, part of it, I get, they have genuinely decent. But the point I'm trying to make is that EC should not only deal with trials, but should also be heavily involved in research and authorizing and making sure that ethically experiments are going to a plan. So yeah.
Mr. Farlow?
I agree with Jacob. However, I don't think that research should be as heavily involved with research as Jacob is listing out. So personally, I believe that the EC should indeed have some involvement with research, as that's what they've always been, so to speak, made for. They've always been made as a research entity. Very rarely do they get involved in situations that aren't research. If they're not, then like Jacob said, it's probably trials or ethical violations. What else do we have? For example, cross tests between Keter, Euclid anomalies, and such. I believe those are the types of incidents that should be approved and reviewed by the ethics committee. However, if a researcher, for example, wants to go ahead and do a test on 049, they should be able to do that no problem. They shouldn't have to consult the ethics committee. Whilst I don't doubt Jacob, and I respect his opinion, as he's a real researcher, he knows more than me. However, at the end of the day, this is still a game. It's a Gmod server. It's an RP server. I know it's a serious RP server at that. However, I believe there should still be a level of letting the players have fun and not restricting them too much.
All right, thank you. So we're now going to move on to the second section of the debate. These questions are specifically targeted at components of your doctrines. So the way it will work is I will ask a question directed at a specific individual based upon their doctrine. They will then have 1:30 to answer that question. Then the opposing person will have the opportunity to rebut their discussion, and should it feel necessary, we will then be allowed to have a small 1.5 minute long debate following both people's answers. So, moving on to the first question, we're starting with medical security. It seems to be a consensus between you both that MedSec is the weakest part of security right now, and you both have suggested solutions. Firstly, I'd like to ask Farlow for some examples from the leadership that you will be transferring over to help with the new division.
One example, in my opinion, is Captain Regimen. After attending a security command meeting, I believe that Regimen, in my opinion, apart from Fish and Caboose, is, in my opinion, the best leader in security. He is, so to speak, the mentor for essentially all of the NCOs and COs within the division, and I believe that he could really do a good job in possibly temporarily handling MedSec and trying to get it up to its best. Whilst I have no ill will against Lieutenant Samuel Knight, I don't necessarily believe he's been doing too good of a job. I don't believe he's been mentoring his men the best. And I will recommend Caboose possibly a removal or such. As well as that, I believe that for Gensec, in my opinion, have a bit too much command members. They are, in my opinion, definitely the simplest division of security. They just get better guns. It's not really difficult to get the grips of. So I believe that we should move some Gensec command over to MedSec. I don't want to touch anything to do with M&E. M&E is very, very fragile, and I am afraid that if I transfer M&E command to MedSec, then M&E will also crumble. So the main jobs I want to give out is Captain Regimen, to oversee MedSec, and possibly some of the sergeants. I'm
And
specifically looking
time.
at gold. Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
All right, Mr. Stevens, you'll have 1 minute to you can either forfeit it or you can have a minute to rebut his answer, starting now.
Fantastic. So, the biggest thing that I saw is a problem that he actually brought up in his talk show. I'm surprised he did this. I think the reason that MedSec does not have its players is not because of leadership. I think maybe the leadership there's some willing to lead. and maybe they're not the best. Okay, let's just excuse that for a second. Let's just take away the point that MedSec probably does not have okay. Everybody's saying, "Oh, the leadership is bad." The point of the question is that MedSec does not have anything that attracts people to want to go into it. You do not have activity in MedSec because, okay, let's just say that you're in MedSec. Okay, you are in there, but you have bad leadership, so you leave. Okay, but what's attracting more people to go to MedSec? No one. There's nothing in there. There's no good technology. There's nothing good. There's no good RP with it. So at the end of the day, because I'm very familiar with the server and the different med sects that we've had in the years and what we can use and what we can't use, the whole point is that listen, there's going to be a leadership problem at the end of it. But we need to get guys into MedSec that are going to be able to lead and want to lead research. MedSec, so that they can prosper. Obviously, there's a leadership problem, but we need guys to join. There's nobody in there.
And
So we're
that's
going to have them join
time.
better add-ons. That's it.
I'm gonna move on to the next question, and so this one is directed at Mr. Severs. Your doctrine specifically goes in the idea of backing the addition of medical RP to the server. This has been brought up a number of times prior to this, and has typically been shot down. Do you think that this general security or medical security will be able to handle the complexities of medicine, even given some sort of script or explanation? And is it possible the difficult style of the RP may actually drive people away instead of building the division back up?
So I'm gonna bring this up, and the reason I bring this up is a big thing that I really support when it comes to increasing the amount of people and activity in division. And that is simply unique capabilities. Now, when I brought up medical roleplay, I think there needs to be more medical roleplay because all it is right now is you have stupid mods that you really cannot use to your advantage, and it does not increase any sort of uniqueness to the role. I'm not saying you need specifically roles and you need to be doing sutures and everything like that, but you need add-ons. A lot of people, I've talked to a guy in Mexico, and he actually recommended a mod. It resembles the one from Escape from Tarkov. I haven't played the game, but I did look at the add-on. It's a very good add-on, and it appears to be something that we could possibly add. We could also use other sort of medkit mods that allows pretty much for it to be more enjoyable. You know, when people join MedSec, probably want to join because they want to be medical professionals in the future, and so you want to emulate that with more add-ons. At the end of the day, people who are not going to join MedSec just because it's just something to do. People who are passionate about medicine and who want to gain ranks in security with medicine will join because of the medical aspects to it, and so you need to increase the amount. And who better to help the addition of medical roleplay than somebody going into medical school? And once again, another point: we increase seriousness to the RP when you increase the amount of RP that needs to be done by a specific division, when you make the uniqueness of the division a real contributing factor. And that's just another point I have to make. So,
All right, Mr. Farrell, you have 1 minute to respond or rebut any of his answers.
I mean, I mostly agree with his points. I mean, I don't really think that everyone who joins MedSec wants to become medical professionals later on in life, but that's more so of a nitpick than anything. So, other than that, I do agree with most of his points and think his MedSec plans are very solid.
All right, we're gonna move on then. Our next topic is going to be the Mobile Task Force. Both of you spent a lot of time discussing about Epsilon 6 and the future of that division, considering its issues, as well as some issues with the division itself. Starting with Mr. Severs, you seem to cite activity as a large issue within the Mobile Task Force. Can you elaborate on exactly what this is, and please explain your solution to that?
activity is a problem in the mobile task force. There's been a problem in the mobile task force for a very long time. This has happened in multiple different rounds of the mobile task force. The problem is that there's no uniqueness to the mobile task force. We go on. I actually have a very, very large section on Epsilon 6 because I think that if Epsilon 6 was more attractive to be a great unit of the mobile task force, you would get more people trying to join the mobile task force to get into E6 if it was expanded upon and actually brought in to be an intelligence agency like force. A lot of people may know about my intelligence agency when I was site director 2-3 years ago. If I make E6 like that and we allow mobile task force to actually have better interactions with DCI, with whoever the GUI may be, by increasing the role play between the two instead of just doing single battles, making it a war, making diplomacy a real thing by increasing the amount of information steal and maybe adding back computers that can help research, but also can increase the RP between the GUI and the MTF regarding the fact that now CI can steal this, and then guess what? The MTF has to go back and steal this. The point is that there's no reason for the CI to break in on and get specific to take the SCPs. Okay, cool. What else can they take? Information. There's information everywhere. There's computers everywhere. It should be role play. This can not only increase the role play for the entire facility, but can also give the MTF more of an elite status. That's another thing that leads to me. Another thing that can allow the MTF to grow. You need to make the MTF harder to get into because at the end of the day, people think of MTF as just another branch of security, just a branch of security that's an easy. No, they're supposed to be the most elite division on site, and by giving them a unique status that makes a very special status, in which makes them elite, already drives the amount of people who want to join. You want to join something because it's exclusive. You don't want to join something because it's inclusive. I want to be a doctor.
That's time. Thank you. I will then now exactly prompt the same question to Farlow. Solving activity. What would your solution be to solving activity
Within the site as a whole, or within a specific
within
division?
MTF specifically?
Within MTF specifically, okay. Well, to rebuttal against Jacob for a small bit, MTF and CI already have a bit of the diplomacy going on in terms of stealing information and stealing objects. Okay, there's a lot of RP going on between that. As for activity, MTF it's always hard to manage the two because you'll have one stage where MTF is very active and CI isn't, or CI is very active and MTF isn't. It's very hard to find a good balance between MTF and CI. I think one of the solutions to this is not weapon changes. Everyone thinks that's the solution. It's not. You don't need your guns buffed to be active. However, I do believe that the MTF should be allowed to have some more authority around the site. They are the elite unit of the site. They should be providing the example to others. They should be teaching others how to properly do their duties. And I believe if the MTF were given some more permissions and they were allowed to command other members of other divisions, so to speak, and lead by example, I think that would be really good. It would give MTF a bit more responsibility around site, and I believe it would create some very good leaders.
That's time. Thank you, Mr. Farlow. All right, coming back to you, Farlow. Your solution to the current weakness in E6 is more specific missions given by the site administration, including and not limited to E6 rating with the GOI to learn their methods. However, the question becomes, how do you justify them doing that if they are likely to either kill Foundation members or die to them?
It's pretty simple. The E6 communicate with the Foundation so they don't die. It's a pretty simple concept to grasp. However, I do understand that there will be a couple people here and there who accidentally misidentify the Epsilon 6 agent and open fire upon him. Um, a solution to this will be hard to find. However, I believe that this program will provide more benefits than negatives. Because I believe if we find out what CI do during raids, what their strategies are for each gate and what each area, I think that would really help MTF in raids and such.
All right, thank you. Next, going to Mr. Sievers. I myself am a member of Epsilon 6, and I have a unique perspective on it. The solution you propose is creating, as you were earlier speaking to, not just having individual battles and hacks computer and having an actual form of long-term espionage roleplay to compare with it. The last time I kidnapped a CIRT researcher and asked, "What's the current project of the CIRT?" I was answered with, "Measuring penises to replace the one the vice commander had cut off." How do you intend to create and enforce this kind of espionage roleplay when it seemed to have been non-existent prior to now?
Gentlemen, it's come to a time where we need to realize that if we're going to enforce these policies, we have to get back to the nature that we are a serious RP server. You bring that up, and I think that's a great question. And honestly, I apologize I didn't address that in my doctrine, but that leads to another point of the serious RP of the server. It's declining. Instead of people actually taking their job seriously, they say, "Oh yeah, we cut off penises. Oh, it's so fucking funny." Well, God, it's so fucking funny. if you get shot dead because you're not giving information. If you're actually being threatened with the possible notion that you may get demoted from that position, you may lose CIA rankship, and if you have a CIA commander that allows that to occur, at the end of the day, we should lead in to more. And I hate to say it, gentlemen, but how are we going to enforce these big policies if we don't have permakill system? If we don't have a PK system where if somebody's not complying, they're joking around, they're not serious, why are they in a CI? Why are they doing that? The thing is that we have to make administrative decisions of the UA. How are we going to enforce this stuff? How are we going to make the RP more serious? Well, unfortunately, if you're not serious, you shouldn't have a job to begin with. But a PK system instead that we can approve through the staff administration with multiple different levels of understanding how it works and making sure we have specific guidelines that can attack so that every person on the CI, the MTF, and the foundation and the GUIs know. Well, guess what? It'll be a lot better. RP needs to be more serious, and through a PK system with great guidelines and very specific, thorough guidelines, will allow RP to be a lot more serious. If people actually are scared to lose their jobs because they get kidnapped, instead of it just being, let's go joke around with the MTF because I know I'm going to live in the next 15 minutes, you got to make
And
RP actually have an impact.
that's time.
Can I add
So,
something quickly?
yes, you can have an additional
Very
30
quickly.
seconds.
So this goes back to another question, but also relates to the current one. In terms of espionage, I'd like to also add that one of my main plans is to work with the current leader of Mobile Task Force Epsilon 6 to increase the surveillance roleplay and also to add a new aspect. In the event that a CI infiltrator does infiltrate our ranks, the Epsilon 6's main goal will be counter espionage and capturing the operative who infiltrated our ranks. So that will give them more role, like Farlow said, but obviously he didn't offer a solution to the problem because he doesn't know what he's doing. To offer a solution to one of the MTF branches being more active and making it more fun, they will be allowed to enter any site to hunt down the infiltrator and then execute them. So that is. I also have plans for a new 7 and Beta 7. Farlow doesn't have any of those. Um, yeah. So Epsilon 6 has a lot to be excited for, and then the new task force that we'll be adding will also be exciting.
All right, Farlow, you can have a minute to either comment on or rebut to Zebras and Johnny Roast Beef's answers.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing because you can literally do whatever the fuck you want because you're the owner. That it's pretty simple. I have to make my plans within the rules. You don't. You can literally modify everything to your liking. You can make your plans to your liking. And that's simply why I quote unquote do not know
Mhm.
what I'm doing.
Right. Yeah, it's very bold. of you to-
Let me handle this. Let me handle this, Brad, because
Okay,
I
okay.
think I'm an example. And Brad could attest to this. Somebody that could attest to this. Even Farlow's site deputy director. When I first came into the server, I still had power, but Brad was still the central authority. The only person in the history, the only two people in the history of this server to go after Brandon directly and risk everything for RP is me and my brother. And I get it, we know Brandon in real life, but we put our jobs, we put everything on the line to maintain and to make the RP better. I did everything in my ability as a site director, as a HOS, as a UA member back in the day. Even though I've been the co-founder, and has absolute authority. You, as a site director, are literally another deputy community director, and anything, another director of roleplay for the server. You are directing a lot of roleplay. Shame on you, Farlow. Shame on all the previous site directors for not risking their job to make everybody's roleplay better. Shame on all y'all. Because I know I went on my way. I know I went on my way and I risked my job so you guys can have a great RP experience. That is a terrible example to bring up, and shame on you, Farlow, for trying to play on the fact that you have no power.
And
Shame on you. You have all
time.
the power in the facility.
All right, we're going to move on now to research, which both of you have said as being a critical component in moving forward a return to strong roleplay within the server. So, you both argue for the application of research's work to then impact the future roleplay and procedures of the site. The application of which seems to be a tad different, but both seem to be in the general effort to make it more uh, useful for research to do research. One fundamental difference, however, between your two ideas is, Mr. Stevers, you are asking for a return to the written research documents and following a new template. Obviously, as you've stated a number of times, you are a researcher, so you understand how to write and create these documents. However, this system had existed prior and was previously removed by Research Administration because they found it discouraged players from doing research and doing tests. how would you enforce making sure that this system would not discourage players?
Was that directed at me or Farlo?
Yeah, that's directed at you. Sorry, the written part is
No
from
worries.
your doctrine.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I just want to make sure the written part and the template part is not to make the work of the researchers hard. It's actually supposed to make it easier. I I have a hard time trying to describe this. I try to describe it in the best way, in the most thorough way possible. But the whole point of a template is so that researchers, when they're writing something up and they do their write up of how the test went, what their protocol was, how they could repeat it with the same procedures, what they were able to find with conclusive evidence. How are they going to do that by just saying, okay, let's just not have a central organization, let's not have a template? If we have a template that goes like, if it goes simple as introduction, then you have the background information, then you have your protocol, then you have your procedures, then you have your results, then you have your conclusion. If every single research does that, then you know that everything is being conducted in a similar manner, and you can read paper to paper. Every single research paper you ever read, if you go on Google right now to Google Scholar, you look at a simple paper about Alzheimer's or cancer, everything will be written the same thing: abstract, intro, procedure, results, conclusion. It's just a simple template for the researchers to follow so that they don't need to go out of their way and try to figure out a complex way to put their information down when that's the most basic way to put your paper down. Same thing happens in medicine. You have subjective, objective, and assessment. That's how it works in medicine. That's how it works in research, and that's how it should work in research in deep gaming. It works for everything else. Why not we apply it in the server to make it easier for researchers to apply their information, apply their tests, and give their conclusions out in a very thorough manner. We do it that way. It's just going to make their life easier. It doesn't make it harder at all. And if anything, it's going to allow them to want to research and to find conclusions, to find results. It's going to make it interesting for them to actually go through what a real researcher goes through. And it doesn't have to be intensive. It doesn't have to be, oh, we have to go to EC before every single experiment. Once again, in my doctorate, I say a thesis needs to be approved, not individual experiments. A thesis includes multiple experiments. When I go to my board, when I go to the NIH and I say, hey, listen, I'm doing this experiment on Alzheimer's and microtubule affinity regulated kinases, I don't say, oh yeah, these are all my separate experiments. Let me go through experiment 1 through 25. No, I say, I'm doing 25 experiments to get the general conclusion that I'm proving that microtubule affinity regulated kinases decrease the amount of Alzheimer's tissue produced with the beta amyloid plaques within the hippocampus. The point I'm trying to make is that DCs is just bigger, and the biggest thing with doctrine that supports research is giving more organization of research and allowing
That's
research to
time.
fully encapsulate research IRL.
Thank you. Following, I give you the opportunity to make comment, rebut, or make other further statements upon his plan or why your solution would be better.
Okay. So I believe my solution would be more effective, as I believe that we should aim to go under the research system that was so successful under Dr. Joseph A. Sievers in version 4. Uh, for example, we had the 4 subdivisions. We had hazardous research, biology, general research, and psychology. Whilst each subdivision had their issues at one point or another. Geo did handle them quite well, and the expectations for the director of research position will be raised a whole lot more, as the DOR position is not a position you can just sit back and do nothing on. Whilst research activity has been pretty good, and they have proven to do very little in terms of changing RP on site. I've tried to actively involve them in interrogations and such. Same with Committee Chairman Owl. For the subdivisions, so to speak, I believe the main reason they fell down is that they didn't understand their rules and what they did. Um, for example, if we look at some of the projects in the research Discord all the way back from before, if anyone's still on that, each subdivision and projects they were assigned by SA or the DOR, they knew what the task was. They were specifically told in the project document what they were doing and what they had to do. And they knew what to do and they did what they were told. This is essentially what we need to aim for. We need to aim for, like fucking Jacob said, a more coordinated research. However, I do believe that it would be more effective under the subdivision system and having research be given a bit more freedom.
All right, thank you, Mr. Farlow. All right, well, now we're moving on from research to the tactical containment unit. You both made a number of comments about TCU being in a relatively good spot. Um, as to the leadership, as to the current status of the tactical containment unit. However, Mr. Stevens, you decided that you're going to change the responsibilities of the tactical containment unit to address the issues within security, to create more for security to do by changing what TCU has to do. Can you further explain exactly what this would encompass and why it is necessary?
Of course. So TCU has been the hardest thing for me to really look at and say, how am I going to change this for the better? TCU, and honestly, I have a plan, and I think a plan will work. The point I'm trying to make is I want to give TCU more responsibility over HCC. I originally stated in my doctrine that I don't want them to feed SCPs, and I still agree with that because I believe that is a big thing that GenSec should be doing. But TCU should be actively involved in all research experiments concerning any sort of SCP. Instead of security being directly involved, it should be security and TCU. But you should always have a TCU member with you, and if he's available, bring the TCU guy. He's more skilled than recontainment. The point I'm trying to make is that TCU giving them more responsibility to do other miscellaneous things throughout the entire site will make them a more fleshed out division. And instead of them waiting in the middle of HEZ, they could be actually doing stuff. Whether or not it's helping researchers, constantly checking up on containment, allowing them to do help with the M&E. If they act as a support division rather than purely just a recontainment division, and if you guys remember back to the SSD of how it was back in V2 or V3, that's how TCU should work. They should be supportive to their other people, not only recontain SCP, but if their sole job is to, recontain SCPs, also allow them to support other divisions where they need be, whether or not support MTF, support research, support security, support FE, do whatever they need to do to, do what we need to do. The point is, and once again, this guy, Ali, brings the great thing. We live research guidelines, get the organizational research up so that they need to call TCU for a test if you have a specific, if it's TCU on, and also make TCU a little more elite too. That's another thing. Increase the training requirements for TCU and make it a more elite division.
And that's time. Thank you. And we go, Mr. Farley, I will give you your minute opportunity to rebut his status and to say whether you agree or disagree with the movement of maintainment from an HGC from a TCU job to a general security job.
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I didn't understand what you said.
Basically, Stever's plan is to move the responsibility of maintaining SCPs and HCZ away from TCU and onto general security instead.
My man, with all due respect, you misquoted me. I said I'm giving the HCZ responsibilities back to the TCU. I'm just allowing GenSec to be more involved with the feeding processes due to their involvement in D-Block. I just want to correct you there. I don't mean to cut you off.
Absolutely no problem. I would not want to have misquoted you. Farley, you were free to rebut his answer.
Okay. For now, I'm going to save any form of rebuttals I have, and I'm going to move on to my question. Sorry, the answer to the question that you provided. For TCU, surprisingly, activity-wise, it's been doing great. Far better than it has been. I believe TCU is going through a pretty good phase at the minute, and I wouldn't want to fucking meddle with anything to make it worse. However, to make it better, I believe overall, TCU should be a more RP heavy division. As you see, I think all TCU can confirm this. The job's fucking boring, man. It's really boring. You just sit in HEZ 4-way all day until an SCP breaches. You go recontain the SCP, then you sit in 4-way. Then you maintain the SCPs. It's a boring job, and I don't think TCU know what they're capable of in terms of RP. Dr. Hathfield, I will say, has been making some good strides alongside with Commander Paralysis. TCU have been upgraded by Hathfield to be the priority guarding, to be the priority security unit for research tests, which I believe is very, very good. However, I do believe that there should be a mix. Okay, I do not believe that TCU should be there for every SCP tests. I believe that each division should be there for a specific purpose. For example, if you're doing a test with 173 and such, sure, have TCU there. They'd be more useful. or if you're having an 049 test, maybe have some Gensec in there, as they'd be more useful and they'd be given better opportunity to RP, as they're perfectly as capable of as recontaining 049 as TCU. I believe different divisions suit different scenarios depending on the SCP that the researcher testing on. I am getting a little bit off track. This doesn't have much to do with TCU. As for Jacob's plan on TCU, for like containment zone SCPs, whilst I don't have anything to knock the LCZ plan, because fucking Gensec have basically nothing to do and they need something to do. But obviously, I can't agree with a good plan because I'm a follower. And I can't agree with good plans because I'm a fucking retard and don't know what I'm doing.
That's
But
actually
anyway,
holy shit. I have not, I've agreed with like 2 things Farlow said, and that was like the third one. So
well, I mean,
I'm glad we're on the same page.
anyways, that's all I have to say.
All right. We're now going to be moving on to the third section of our debate, the question and answer from the audience questions. Obviously, I have already taken in questions ahead of time to be added to the other primary sections, but obviously, when we get into a debate, statements are made, and it gives an opportunity for people to have new questions. So, I'm going to be taking 5 questions from the audience. If you have a question, I would please like you to raise your hand. I will be randomly selecting 5 of you to come up and ask a question. So just go ahead and throw them hands up. Everybody who wants to. Alright, I'm just gonna take one of the random people. Spinning a wheel, and there we go. Alright, Mr.
Hello.
Caddick, if you'd like to please ask your question.
Uh,
How did
my question is, who is each of your site defense generals?
Follow. Actually, I left. Yeah. I'll go first because I have the simplest answer. One of the first things I'm going to do is get rid of the role. It's very simple. There is no reason for a site defense general. This is very contrary to what I supported back in the day. Here's the thing: site defense general pushes in to the role that the site deputy director has, and better yet, it's an unelected official. You are not voting for who your site defense general is. You are not voting for them at all. He could be my best friend. You know what? Let's have my boy Benny Blancs from Angelonis go become the site defense general so he can have some power over the facility. Because that's what could happen under Flarlow. What could happen under me. Because you did not vote for that position. Also, the thing is with SDG is that it tears into the role that the site deputy director has. You have to understand the site deputy director and the site director have the exact same roles and the exact same power. It's just that the site director is a more representative when it comes to the overall site. And the site deputy director is at any moment ready to take over his role. That's how site deputy director and site director work in this version of Deep Gaming. If we go back 3 years, yes, SDG and SDD are completely different because SDD doesn't have the same power as a site director, but SDD and the site director in this version of this version in the server has the exact same power. So yes, one of the first things I'm going to do, and this is last on the list because I don't think it's really that influential on the server as of now. But one of the last things I'll do on day one is to fire Josh, give him a position and a specific division when I agree to with the HOS, and remove the role of the site defense general.
Alright, thank you. Farlow, if you'd like to go next.
For the site defense general position, I intend to be very democratic about it. I'm going to gain various input from command in multiple combat divisions, and I'm going to ask them whether or not the site defense general has actually helped them in their actions and in how their division properly operates. Of course, if the response majority of it is negative, we will probably take the course down of removing the
Jesus
position.
Christ, are you just a puppet? Are you just a puppet to the HOS?
Oh
You
my
do
God.
anything on your own? Oh, I need to ask the HOS if the SDG is a retard. Bro, Josh will even say that his position does nothing. He's just an MTF agent. I see him go on the fucking surface with the fucking Mark 18, okay? I can tell just by that. I'm only down for 3 days and I know he doesn't do shit. And Josh can test, okay? So if I need to dip out, okay? I told Josh we're going to demote him, and if me and Jacob go inactive, I'm going to shoot Jacob in the face, and Josh is going to take over and get a real job. Because the SDG is not a real job. So let me ask you this really quickly. What does the SDG, what is it going to do if it does stay?
It will mainly probably oversee, obviously, combat things, but obviously that's that's a shit answer.
What is
Um,
what is their answer then? It's like, what's the good
Alright,
answer?
let me try. I'm going to elaborate. I'm going to elaborate.
Go ahead, go ahead.
So the site defense general's role will heavily involve Epsilon 6, as I believe Josh has involved himself with it, but I do not believe he's involved himself enough. Epsilon 6 should, be actively getting operation after operation, and I believe that the site defense general should be the one giving Epsilon 6 said operations.
So
I also
okay. So we need an SA position to manage over people. What else is he gonna do?
So it's
wait. Allow me to elaborate. The
Go
site
ahead.
defense the site defense general. Also, obviously, this is already an example duty of its
Okay.
position. However, it fills in HOS when they have left their positions. And
HOS is he filled in.
yes, but fucking
Which
the
one?
site defense. Allow me to explain. All right.
Well, you can
Explain.
explain it, but has it happened?
Yes, it actually has happened with the
Yeah, who?
MTF
I'm
commander, for
asking who.
example.
And how long was he
Ginge
gone
John,
for?
Ginge, he was gone for I believe a week or two, and
I think
Josh
your
stepped
ovens.
in
Your no, like out of, like really quickly. There's some beeping in the background.
to
As
watch.
the turkey.
To watch.
Yeah.
To watch. It's all good, bro. But yeah, the majors were very unorganized within MTF, and kept on assuming command position after command position after all of them had to go in LOA.
So here's my suggestion, right? Fire the majors and get good ones, and then you don't have to have Josh. Or make Josh a major. That's so fucking smart. Holy shit, Josh. You could be a major and actually lead people, because people look at you as a joke as SDG, but if he puts you in a real position of power, here is the problem, okay? Caboose is an excellent man. He's a great man. I can tell that saving Joe is rubbed off on him in their friendship. His problem and the deputy chief's problem, the captain's problems are all too nice. I can tell you, based on the debriefs, the captains and the chiefs and the fucking lieutenants are the only ones doing any work. These sergeants are literally they're as active as I am. They're as active as I am. That's our main goal. I'm going to fucking grab them all and shoot them, because I see these corporals who are leading these kids and they are willing to lead and they will be excellent sergeants. I will fix the leadership training that I made, put it back to what it used to be. All we need, the STG needs to go MIA. The problem is the DHOS and the officers are literal clowns. People treat it as another enlisted rank. It is an officer rank. People who can lead should go there. You don't go there for playing a lot. That's why you have idiots like Falcon who are in charge, who should not be in charge. I don't care if Falcon's played for 15 years. It should be a private. Okay? Because all he does is throw fucking grenades at his teammate and already have him spawn. That's a major duty? No. STG is not needed when the officers are good. STG is needed when the officers are monkeys, which they are. No offense, officers, but we're gonna whip you into shape. We're not gonna demote you. We're gonna fix you.
all right.
There you go.
Thank you, Chaotic. If you don't mind stepping back down to the audience. Thank you. All right, our next question is going to come from Void.
I know what I said, Kino. I know what I said.
Alright, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
My question is, how will each of you deal with the huge increase in racism on site, specifically the term blackies?
Demote Farlow. He's the one who invented it. End of question.
It was actually Gaines that invented that term, not myself.
You weren't called.
Brandon,
Hey,
you want to hear from my lawyer, Brandon De Palma? This is slander.
Can we agree here? This is a stupid question. Just skip
It's
it.
Yeah,
I'm
I can agree. Yeah.
it's kind of a dumb question.
We can agree.
Alright,
I hate
yeah,
Farlow.
we're gonna-
We can agree.
But once again, on seriousness, it's not tolerated. But yeah.
This is Farlow's fault.
Our next question is going to come from Mr. White Monarch.
Hello. So my question is, back when I used to be a master sergeant, I ended up leaving because there was nothing left for me to do. At the time, I couldn't go higher unless I joined another division. Couldn't participate in surface wars, so I would like to ask, how could you fix that? So, yeah.
Simple answer: accountability. That's it. The biggest thing is maintaining the accountability of the higher ups. If your higher up is slacking, AFK, not leading correctly, not leading to a specific extent, we hold them accountable. Not only will I hold them accountable, but this is decentralization form of power that I will trust my HOS to also execute in order to demote that certain human person, so that somebody who's better to lead will be going up a rank instead of maintaining their rank. There's competition, and there should always be competition between the officers for who gets the higher position. leadership will be rewarded because we will be holding everybody accountable.
And that's like I said. Jacob has to focus on the bigger picture. I'll be helping narrow down the problem. Monarch, were you a good Master Sergeant? Be honest. Or were you an okay Master Sergeant?
In the beginning, I will say I took it seriously, but after a while, I started stagnating, and so I decided to leave.
And were your lieutenants god tier lieutenants, or were they idiots?
It was Regiment and Justice.
Okay. Well, they're pretty good. But if you're better, I will assure you, you will get there. Caboose or not caboose, every security chief has treated seniority over skill. Seniority only matters if the people are good. The DHOS can be there for 15 years and they can be as shitty as a private or a cadet. They need to be fired. Doesn't matter how long they've been there. You shouldn't promote based on how long someone's been there. You should promote based on how good they are. Which is why you
I
have
agree
people
with
like
you.
Falcon who can't lead in positions of power. Now Falcon is a funny guy. I give him that. He's a good player. I give him that. But he's not a leader. Okay, all he does is call out corners and say there's a CI over there. He doesn't hold debriefs. If Ginge goes AFK, I spoke with the Chains, and if anyone knows better than me, it's Chains. That's why he's my server director. He's the smartest man I know in regards to the server, and he keeps it alive when I'm not there. And he told me, I said, how is MTF doing? He said, oh, we needed to add a new job, Vice Commander. And I was like, oh, why is that? And I'm like, he's like, oh, Ginge had to go, and then the people wouldn't step up. And I was like, well, what about the majors? And he told me the majors are idiots. And then with the vice commander position, they didn't even pick a major. That's how bad they are. Instead of demoting them, they had to make a new job because they fear accountability. They had to make a new job, and they picked some random guy who's lower than the majors because the majors are incompetent. So we wouldn't have to have make that job. I mean, it may be a good job. It could be centralized power, but the majors are so bad that should have been fired. Like, come on.
Farlow, if you'd care to answer to that as well.
Okay. So first off, a little rebuttal to Brandon. It's nothing major, but it wasn't actually some random.
We're talking
It
about
wasn't some
majors.
random. It wasn't some. Thank you, thank you. It wasn't some random private that did get vice commander. It was actually new 7 Major King, an existing MCF major that did get the vice commander position. But that's going to be unrelated to the question. As for your question, White Monarch, when you have essentially reached the end of your rope, the people above you are too good for you to move up, and your upwards momentum is pretty much completely gone. And if you're losing and if you're losing the motivation to properly participate in your duties in your division, all my fucking advice is in general to resign, as it will allow more leaders to prosper within the security department. As well as that, it will also give you a new opportunity to explore a new division and possibly rise the ranks through there. From my personal experience, every division is a unique experience, and every division is very fun to play. And personally, I'm biased to research and FE, but that's unrelated. But anyways, back to the question. If you again are not having fun, you're not enjoying your position, you've reached the end of your rope, my best advice is to resign and let someone better and more motivated take over the mantle. Now, as for things, you did say that you couldn't participate in surface wars and such. I believe this insinuates that after a certain period of time, you get bored in your position and you don't have enough duties. Well, as a security NCO, you, in my personal opinion, you have plenty of duties. Maybe instead of having the security COs and such always handle the security debriefs, how about you go up to a security CO, a captain, or the deputy chief or something, and go, "Hey, can I host this security debrief as I feel I will do well in it?" And that really will show off your leadership capabilities, and it will let people know that you're not just some random sergeant that fucking got into that position by sheer luck. It allows you to give yourself an opportunity to prove yourself and prove how you're fucking better than the people above you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Monarch. If you want to hop back down into the audience for us. All right, we're gonna have 2 more questions. The next one's gonna come from the newsman himself, Mr. Car H. Less.
I got a question. This is a very important question. Please take it seriously. Are you guys going to try to win the Division Bowl in the upcoming August 2022 Division playoff season? Thank you.
Yes.
No question about it. Yes.
No, we're not gonna try to. We're gonna fucking win. Okay. So we're gonna be active. Okay. Now, I want to just say, let's give Reptile a chance to answer your question.
Hold up. Did he say active? He said active! He said he was gonna be active! Holy fuck! Oh, I'm dead! Oh, good one, Brandon! Good one, Brandon! Oh my fucking god!
Listen,
Oh.
we got away from the actual debate. But if you really want to get debate about the activity of the site director, the site deputy director, you got to understand that the entire site is led via decentralization form of power. By being site director, you're supposed to sit in your office and do paperwork all day. That's what a real site director would do in real life, and that's what real directors of institutions do. What you do as a site director is you give general orders to your HOS, which you're supposed to hold accountable for those orders. You actually go give an order to the HOS, which gives an order to the CO, which gives the orders to the NCO to assemble squads to get the duty done. That's how it's done, and you have to apply the decentralization form of power. You can also be more direct in your power, but the point is that the site's built in a decentralized way, so that not one person holds the power, and
John
thereby
Garofalo's entire career is just him walking around and trying to rack up kills from the Alpha One. He does two things on day one, and then he just goes MIA and staring. He just stares at the wall with his Alpha One and tries to get people killed. That's all he does. I mean, me and Jacob actually have things, that we can still say that are here. For example, the doctrines, the reason they exist is because of me, and it's been going on for 2 years. Jacob's the Constitution, the leadership training was me, the entire structure of the site administration was me and Jacob, versus Farlow's. Let's take a look real quick. If you mind, I may quote a doctrine. Does anyone remember the Equal Stage Act, or the HOS Strike System Act, the RDS Payment Act? Like, these are all clown college acts. The War Heroes Act, the Code White Assistance Act. I'm reading off of your entire doctrine. I can't say. The Manager Overall Act, the Security Sentinels Act, the Officer Overhaul Act, which was just my idea when I executed it, and then he tried and failed. The Security Rank Change Act. Like, come on. This is your entire doctrine from October. There's just nothing that's lingered. My doctrine was 4 things, and they're all still my first doctrine. I don't remember my second one, I'm not gonna lie. Because I lost.
Yeah, Farlow, you can go ahead and have one more minute to do a rebuttal, and then we're going to move on to the next and final question and answer from the viewers.
Well, do you want to know why no one's heard of these acts? Because all of these acts are from V4 nearly 2 years ago. Over half of these people haven't been playing at the time of these acts being published. You're nitpicking at the stuff that
Let the record
hasn't
show
been
this is
remembered.
from October of 2021. End of V5.
Security Sentinels Act.
I got it right here, man. October 2021 is when this was posted.
Okay. Then instead of that, then
Let's continue to the next question.
I'll show 2 things that have stuck. For
Okay.
example, the negotiation orders. That was my idea. That was something I implemented, and it's stuck ever since, and it's been
It stuck,
consistently
but then it was
updated.
immediately changed because it sucked. King changed it, didn't he?
Yes,
Or
but
the
it was
guy right after you changed it as well.
But negotiation order, that system, it has stayed in place. There was no real effective way to order the negotiation system other than that. And as well as that,
You can have a private negotiate because it's always the same thing that happens. The MTF don't want to spend any money because you set a cap, and then they just get killed and gunned down in a fucking hallway. I mean, come on. The leadership training literally grooms sergeants to do their job. Obviously, the current leadership of security can't do that right now because they all suck. The Constitution literally outlines the powers of the HOS, including the deputy site director, which no site director has been able to follow. I will follow that. I will be doing my own executive orders separate from Jacob, but we will ensure that they're on the same page because I am going to fix this position and lead by example. Okay.
We're
But
gonna move
I
on.
do acknowledge that you did. What was the other thing? I will admit that your negotiation order did stand. Granted, it was not as significant as ours. I will admit that it stood, and I'll let you say the other thing so you can.
well, it's not as significant as Manson's. Manson made it a lot more significant. However, the honorary unit system was also something that I brought
in
back.
fairness, we all know who made that.
That was Joe.
Yeah, it was Joe. Leadership training and the Constitution before Jago and I has never been. That's all I'm saying. But I will acknowledge you did revive other ideas, but you can't live off of revived ideas ever. That's how you see the updates are living off of revived ideas.
Yes, but
And
the
we both know it can't
Constitution,
live.
the Constitution and other things are stuff that is extremely needed. Anyone else could have made the Constitution and it would have stuck. It just so happened to be that you were the one that made the Constitution. If someone else made it, it still would have stuck. Do you get what I'm
That's
saying? These
true.
are
I agree, but when people change it, it sucks. When people change the negotiation order, the significance is serious. If you see the new constitution, and no disrespect to the king, but the addition to the ethics committee was a cool idea, but they didn't do shit the entire time. We can agree on that.
yes, we can agree on that definitely.
And the new additions to the constitution, Jacob's fundamental outlines, and to my knowledge, looking at the documentation as of a couple months ago, leadership training has not changed at all. No one has made any edits to it. The security chief can correct me if he's here. If they did make a change within the past couple of months.
Well, if I may ask a question then, because I don't think many people here, are aware of the issues with the leadership training. So if you could describe that to the audience.
Leadership training. So
Yeah.
leadership training just teaches basic leadership. The reason it was implemented is because all of the sergeants, like I said, were picked based on seniority and not based on skill. They would just get the position if they played for a long time. It would teach you how to create squadrons. It would teach you how to talk to your troopers and give direct orders versus indirect orders. And it would also teach you how to act in situations. The reason why... Exactly. Which is pretty much the only things a sergeant needs to do. It amazes me how the lieutenants have to pick up the slack, even though it is so basic, the leadership training, but is so effective. It amazes me that it can't be done.
We're gonna go ahead and jump on to that final question now, if you guys don't mind. So our final question will come from. Let me spin the old wheel of fun. Mr.
Can we have
Gaines.
everybody spam Chug in chat, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So this is a great question, and like I said, I think my doctor lays this out very easily. The point is that I honestly do not think GMs should be doing research tests at all. I have no idea what the GMs are doing. I personally, Brad knows this because I do speak to him sometimes about issues I do see in the server and the GMs. At least I see PRP. I think kill some RP coming from certain divisions. But my point that I'm trying to make is that research itself will increase in its activity when we get people in research that could go in and say, hey, listen, we want you guys to do this, 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 and then test. If I order a test, a thesis to be proven about 682, and I assign it to a group of researchers to put their hypotheses into it and test on my behalf to get it going, boom, we get more RP. We also get better leadership and research. We also get the supervisors of research to be more involved and be project managers, how it is in real life. You have a supervisor. When I was researching, I had a supervisor. She gave me general goals I had to reach. I took my hypotheses and I reached those goals based on what it is. Once again, the same thing when I said the decentralization of power. Supervisors should be doing their own experiments, very high tasks and very important theses, but at the same time should be giving out experiments and giving ideas to the general research. Research should be actively communicating. If there's any division that needs to communicate the most, other than MTF1CI rating or any other GOI's rating, is research. They need to be communicating 24/7 so you can go over who's doing what test. And here, this is a good idea. Are you looking at 049? Here's a cool idea I have about 049. Oh, here's a cool idea I have for 682. Here's a cool idea I have for whatever it is. Allow research to communicate with one another. Allow them to be more organized so that you can have theses. That researchers can develop theses of general ideas and hypotheses they want to prove in multiple experiments that go and prove and allow them to actually affect RP. If you find a good way to change a recontainment procedure for SCP-682 and there's an add-on for it and you prove through research and putting in the work, well, guess what? You just made an addition to RP, and you may just only be just initiated into the research program, and you made a huge change in the RP that we live by and the way we contain 682. I want to get to that point that DCCs, all of them, unless they're proven otherwise, unless there's some sort of ethics or it doesn't make any sense with the lore, can change RP. Deep Gaming has the money to spend on add-ons to make people want to play RP more. What's going to make TCU more interesting if there's if there's more unique recontainment strategies? How is that going to be developed? By research and development. By having a thesis strategy, by having every single strategy for research to actually affect RP and give more organization or research will only allow them to push out more tests, get more active, affect RP, and affect RP in a good way by maintaining the seriousness of it and affect the RP of the entire site rather than just research. Research
All
itself
right. I think we should
stimulates that on their own.
allow Farlow to have an opportunity to answer.
Well, I do believe that research should rely a bit less on GMs. I do not believe in the fact that GMs should completely be removed from research testing. GMs have overall been a net positive for the research department. It has massively improved activity, and GMs have introduced this new form of RP to research. However, I believe that the major issue with research is the research administration team. Without the research administration team, research is essentially nothing. They have no creative ideas. They have no leaders to look up to. No one can review their tests. No one can oversee their tests, and such. And I think a good RA is the best possible choice for research. I believe that the only real RA member I see playing a proper active role on site is Dr. Jeff. The rest of the guys just the other guys just kind of walk around and don't do much. No offense, Juan, I love you, but you don't do much as RA. Now, the RA might rebuttal with this, saying, "Oh, but we've been trying to host group projects, but researchers just haven't shown up. It's because they're not interesting. They bring in no interest. There's no incentive to do it. A promotion in research means essentially nothing if you're not providing to the server. Even if it's just a good document, even if it's just some fun for a couple people, if you're not providing anything to the server, if you're not providing anything to anyone, you're essentially doing nothing, and the promotion you might get is worthless. Anyways, I believe research should return to playing a more heavy role on site and doing what they were supposed to do, which is listed in the research training document, which is research are supposed to contain and research and find out new containment procedures for our anomalies on site. Whilst I believe that the demonology, anomalous sciences, and such have brought a newfound activity to research, at the end of the day, gentlemen, it's not research. That it isn't what research is about. It strays away from the main goal of research, which is testing on the SCPs we have on site. We should be testing on the SCPs we have contained in our facility, not creating new ones.
All right, thank you, Mr. Farlow. And thank you, Gaines, for such an
Thank you.
insightful question. If you won't mind stepping down in the audience. All right, well, it's been an excellent debate. I think both sides have done a good job. We are now running over the hour and 40, sorry, hour
Can I
and a
ask
half
a
mark.
question?
I was actually about to say that. So our final component in the last part of the debate is going to be opposition questions. So each of you are going to be given the opportunity to ask the opposing person 2 questions. They'll then be allowed to answer within a 1-minute time frame. You will then get a 1-minute rebuttal to follow back on them. So if you need a moment or so, otherwise you can jump right to it. I will flip a coin to decide who goes first. Mr. JRB, as server director, would you like to call it?
Heads.
It is heads. Would you like to go first or second?
First.
All right, Mr. John, if your side would like to go first and ask the first question to Mr. Farlow.
So, usually I would use this time to ask you a question that would make you look bad, but genuinely, this is for the sake. I guess this is to help you, kind of. After watching this debate and seeing my participation versus reptiles, are you reconsidering him as your deputy site director?
Right now, this isn't Reptile's fault. I didn't. I was contemplating explaining this because we have a rather large audience, but
That would
I
probably be
don't.
wise.
Yeah, I don't want to. I can DM you why Reptile's deafened because
If
I
he
don't
has
really
a
want to.
reason, then he should just DC, honestly. But if he's just trying to be here to show, then yeah. But if he has a valid reason, then that's fine. Obviously, don't say it if he doesn't want you to. I don't
Yeah,
need to.
yeah, damn, that's why.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, then that makes sense. He should probably focus on that. I'm gonna DC him actually and tell him he
Yeah,
should worry about that.
yeah.
But that was all.
All right. We're gonna go to Farlow. You'll be allowed to ask your first question to Stevers and JRB.
Okay. In the event that I do lose this election in the scenario, what will be your guys' roadmap for FE? Because to be frank, it's a bit vague. The plans for FE, it's mainly just more work with EC, and the ability to become members of the ethics committee, which any member on site can currently become. So I'd like to know what your guys' in-depth plans for FE are, because if I lose my site, if I don't win the site director position, I will obviously. I love FE. I feel as if I've been leading it well, and I just want to know what's going to go on with it.
So the first decision when it comes to FE is very important. We need to make the FE an enforcement division. It is, and it needs to maintain the enforcement. It needs to be a police division. What that means is that we need to be looking at the penal code. I do not believe the penal code has been really changed significantly. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be giving you and your friends and your boys at COs as well as the regular list to make absolute changes to the penal code. Another thing we're also going to be doing is allowing the interaction between EC and FE to be a real thing. We're going to be developing guidelines when it comes to the EC in order to determine guidelines as to which trials can be accepted and are needed for specific cases. So the FE, let's just say you arrest an HOS personnel or a CO for a specific offense, they may actually need a trial. They may actually want to, once again, deserve a trial via the Sinai Constitution. So your involvement in talking to the EC and working hand in hand with the EC, like the police do, a judge and a court, is very important and will be executed to the fullest extent. Another thing we have to work on is the seriousness of FBO as long as with arrest. Once again, all the three big words of the RAW doctrine restore accountability, responsibility, and respect. We need to maintain the accountability of everybody on the site. How do we maintain? How do we hold everybody accountable? Through
And that is
codes, through
time.
laws. We have to bring that back to FE.
Thank you, Farlow. Would you care to make any further statements?
No, I think I've gained all the information I need.
All right, we'll go back to Stevers. You have an opportunity to ask one more question to Mr. Farlow, or you are free to not.
Brandon, if you have any question, I have a good one, but if you want to ask,
Not
if
off
you
the
have a
top
better
of my
one,
head, I can make one though for next time.
no, it's all good. All right, so my other question to you, Farlow, is very simple. On your first day, what are you gonna do? My simple question is: you get elected to site director, you get inaugurated. What is the first thing you do after you get inaugurated?
And we are going to immediately arrange a meeting with the ethics committee. And we're going to sort out the ethics committee. It's a bit of a jumbled mess right now. They essentially have no duties, and they need to be able to serve a proper role on site. So I believe that establishing the powers and the proper guidelines for the ethics committee are the most important thing to do first. Second off, we're going to be arranging. Essentially, the first day is all going to be preparations, and then the second day is when our plans are going to start going into action. So for the first day, we're going to be regarding discussing with the ethics committee members about their new powers, possible new members coming in, as the ethics committee, obviously, as you know, have been recently purged, and now there are only two members, being committee chairman Owl and committee member Dr. Lin. So yeah, EC will probably be the main focus on our first day. But I could relay the same question to you, though. What do you intend to do on your first day?
So, I'll say you do have an opportunity for one more question, Farlow, if you'd like to ask it.
Yeah, that was my question.
All right.
So, fortunately for me, I have the ability to know when the inauguration date. The minute I get inaugurated, we'll be having a whole new EC guidelines be put into not only play but there'll also be a new article containing the section in the Senate Constitution concerning EC the minute I get inaugurated. That'll be done the minute I get inaugurated. I'm not going to be really having. I'm going to be discussing mainly with Alan because it's easy to discuss with them. We do have to understand their input will be greatly appreciated, but at the same time, we need to understand that there's an EC needs to be extremely changed. They're going to be changing some of the rules of what they need to do, and unfortunately, their input's very important to me, and we're going to be adding it into whatever we do with EC. Now, EC is one of the first things we want to do, but another thing I want to do is also implement a lot of the changes when it comes to accountability. I'm then going to ask all the HOS to go over and hold them accountable by going over their SOPs and sending me updated SOPs within 24 hours. If they cannot hand up an SOP with me within 24 hours, they are demoted, and I'm picking a new HOS member. The third thing we're going to do is immediately implement the D-block schedule, which already has guidelines set out. The minute I get inaugurated, that we put into play and will be executed to the best extent we can until we can get an official code made by
That
developers
is
for that to occur.
time. Thank you, everyone. Obviously, we've come to the end of our debates. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I think we had, we had over 50 people here for almost the entirety of the debate, hitting even over 60 at one point. I'd like to thank both of our candidates for coming and really putting themselves on the line here and doing the best they can to make their case for why they should be the site director. And lastly, I'd like to thank all of the people who came up and had questions for them, because I think the live questions really allowed us to further some of the statements made by all of the candidates. With that, good night. I don't know if I heard maybe Jeremy, you want to take over for this, or otherwise I can
Do you
just
want them to do
end it.
closing remarks?
Um,
I mean,
if
that's
they,
what we usually do. I mean,
it's
it's up to
it,
you. You're the host.
if you'd both like to, unfortunately I actually have to run.
You're good. You can go.
But I would like to thank everybody.
Do
If you
you
guys
guys
want to make
want
some
to
closing
take over,
statements,
Barlow?
you guys can go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to.
Sure, yeah. You can go first, Jacob.
Monty, I don't know if you're here, but thank you very much for that great debate. I appreciate your hosting and everything like that, interrupting when we're going over our time span. I do appreciate the fairness to each side. Like I said, once again, thing is I'm introducing three things back to the site that we have lost: accountability, responsibility, respect. If we put all three things, apply them to every single HOS, to every single CO, to every single NCO, to every single enlisted, we will make this server not only more serious but more enjoyable, more fun for everybody. Organization comes through accountability and through the responsibility factor. Once again, I urge you guys all to please read my doctrine in full. It's very thorough. Read it in detail. If you have questions, feel free to message me. I will be free to answer any of your questions. I would love to answer any of your questions regarding anything regarding the doctrine. The point I'm trying to make is that I have a great track record. I got the Sinai Constitution. The role play you are executing and you are playing on was developed not only by me, but a lot of people I was working with. But I have to say, I had a great pick in the role play you guys are playing on right now. A lot of the things you do, the way you act, the way it's organized, is all from me. I get things done. I get things done on day one, and majority of everything in the doctrine will be done in 1 week. The point I'm trying to make, which is the very important trying to make, is that I'm trying to restore accountability, responsibility, respect, and only through this can we restore back to the old original serious Site 09. With that being said, thank you guys for all coming to the debate. I appreciate your time greatly, and I hope to see you guys at the polls voting either way.
Can I close quickly, Farlow? It'll be like 30 seconds.
Alright,
Unless
cool,
you want to go first. Alright, gentlemen, thank you all for coming, like you said. I'm excited to see the results on the 7th. I would like to mention one thing. Obviously, there are concerns with Jacob and my inactivity. Jacob's inactivity may be of question, but I can assure you, he does not need to be here 24/7 to get things done. He never has, and he has done more than any site director in the history. He has held the longest term, and he has consistently made updates through a 2-year term, which is very difficult. Updates as in changes to policy, changes to leadership, and changes to the way that things play out. Now, I may not be the most active, but let's make something perfectly clear. I am running for this position of Deputy Site Director, the least active position in the entirety of roleplay, and I can assure you, I can only get on 3 days that is more active than the Deputy Site Director. Will I only get on 3 times? Of course not, but I will prove to you that the Deputy Site Director is a position that should be used. It is not a position that gets on twice to host a debrief and walk around with HOS and getting people killed. I will be making my own executive orders. I will be making my own policy. I will actually be making policy in the event Jacob is to go inactive, or in the event I am to go inactive to take us out of power peacefully or with armed men. That will be the things I will do on my first day to revise the way to remove a site director and give less power to the HOS in regards to monitoring executive orders, but more power in removing us from power. I know I said it'd be a minute, but that was it. Thank you all for coming once again.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming to the debate. I'd like to thank Brandon and Jacob for giving and providing an interesting debate, and probably one of the best debates we've seen in a while. Despite